Live from the KC Property Guys and KC Pier Studio in beautiful Kansas City. Home to over 200 fountains and more barbecue restaurants per capita than anywhere in the nation. It's the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Show, a show about industry leaders from the local Kansas City metro market for Kansas City real estate related professionals and enthusiasts like you. And now, here's your host, Erik Lancaster.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Estate Industry Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, John Lundquist, and with me today I have Erik Lancaster and Erik Lancaster. And we're going to be talking about the different sorts of problems that you can have if you wait on foundation repair. And so with problems that you can have with your foundation, it comes in stages of severity. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So if we start at the least severe problem that you could allow to become bigger, where would we start for that? What's the first sign that you need to jump on this?
Yeah, and I think what we can do for this conversation, because this is great for homeowners and realtors, that let's take it from a water perspective as well as a structural perspective. So we see both, obviously. Erik is our structural consultant, one of our structural consultants at KC Pier. So it's glad to have you in the studio and chatting with us today. And of course, we're coming up on our winter months. And so we start to schedule and talk to our real estate offices, throughout the winter months. And this is something that we do talk about a lot, is the levels of severity, from Foundation 101 all the way to the advanced and most severe cases. And what we're going to try to tie in today is the financial piece that goes along with that. And what are some solutions that are out there for the minor all the way up to the most severe. So let's start with water specifically. If you could walk us through, Erik, some of the least expensive, most minor things that we see that normal homeowners and even our realtors will see in the house. Yeah. And then how can that progress if homeowners tend to ignore them, for whatever reason?
Yeah. So when there is water coming in, there is hydrostatic pressure. That's what's pushing this water against the home in the first place. That's what's causing these cracks along with the expansive clay. Yep. So the least thing that we deal with on a regular basis would be probably a vertical crack. Maybe it's around the foundation seam itself where those kind of came together. Water is kind of blown through there and is creating some staining. Maybe your basement's finished. You see some staining on the sheetrock. You smell some mold, something of that nature that's alerting you to this problem. You tear into it, and that's what we find. That would be a crack injection. That's how we deal with that. That's basically where we go in. We inject foam into that crack. We stop the water from coming in.
So you're basically addressing an issue from the inside versus digging it out and stopping it on the outside where it's actually coming in.
Correct.
And how long does a crack injection take on a typical crack? Let's say a 7-foot, 8-foot long crack.
Sure, absolutely. That'd be your standard basement length. We could probably inject that crack in 2 hours.
Right. You're talking a few $100s.
Yep, a few $100.
Right.
Easy, simple. Jumped right on it. Got it done.
But what happens if you don't spend that few $100s and you wait?
Yeah. That's what we're talking about today, right?
Right.
So what can happen in that case is the water can obviously create damage. Say you have a finished basement, right? Let's talk about it from step back from foundation, right? But what else can cost you money? Sheetrock, right? You let that crack leak for a long time. It's going to create mold in your insulation, your sheetrock. You're going to have to tear a lot of different things out that you wouldn't have had to do had you just noticed that right away and got on it. From a foundational standpoint, water pouring in and more pressure on that wall will continue to crack the wall. So you got the wall moving in, you got further water infiltration if you don't handle that right away.
And if it is not handled, let's say it continues to pressurize that wall, what are the next stages of what at least what you see on a day-to-day with cracks as they advance?
Sure, absolutely. So say you have that first crack that's coming in that you don't address. Normally you're going to get a split off of that crack. Okay, so then you got more of your wall that's being affected there. That is just going to translate all the way down whatever wall we're working on. When that happens, you're going to obviously get a lot more water infiltration. So then most likely, as far as water is concerned, you've transferred from a quick, easy, couple hour, few $100 crack injection, okay, to what we call our KC Pier interior drain system. That system has to be in place when there's more water because it handles that extra water load that is occurring with that wall.
So what's involved? How does it work?
Okay, so the KC Pier interior drain system, we actually remove a section of the concrete slab along the affected wall. We dig down 6 to 8 inches. We install a 4-inch pipe in there. Then, because your wall is no doubt at this point, if we're using the system, spider cracked, it's got a lot of water coming through the wall itself, we run DuraShield up the wall. What that is a 4x8 sheet of mold-resistant, rot-resistant paneling. Okay, it's like plastic paneling. That runs up and down your wall. That runs down to where we've placed our 4-inch drain pipe at. We then pour the concrete back. So any water that comes in any of those multiple cracks that you probably now have has no choice but to run straight down into our system, which obviously runs to a sump pump, and we pump that water out away from your home.
So from there, if you are now essentially what you're saying is that moat, that interior drain, right, is capturing kind of the horizontal water, the water that comes in through the floor, because you also have water through the floor, and then the DuraShield or the wall shield is capturing that vertical water.
Correct.
Right, all directed towards this drain that you've placed in the system, pushes it to the sump pump and out.
Yes.
Right.
It forces the water to have somewhere to go.
Right. We're providing a path of least resistance for the water.
Yeah. So we're still addressing it from the inside, right? And you got great video of some of these houses that we've done recently, where you can actually see what I really like about the DuraShield, the wall shield product, and you've shown this on a recent video in Shawnee, that it's super clean. You know, it almost gives a real finished basement look. Some people could even use it as a finished basement look.
Yeah, great for man caves.
Yeah, you bet. You get vertical protection that way. You got horizontal protection as well. But what we've done on both of those solutions is we've addressed the issue from the interior of the home.
That's correct.
Again, and the reason we're doing that is, I assume, is because it's cost effective, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the difference, I mean, if you're not going to address it from the interior, you're going to have to address it from the exterior. What do you do to address it from the exterior, and how those cost differences kind of escalate?
Absolutely. So whenever we do have, one thing I want to touch upon real quick is whenever we do have just a simple crack that we inject, or even if there's multiple cracks along the wall that we're using the drain system for, we can still address those structurally with our interior steel wall braces. Because if you're having a wall crack in a minor sort of way, it probably has not moved in a significant amount. So our wall braces that we put up are steel I-beams, 4-inch steel I-beams, and they kind of address the pressure that's pushing in on that wall. And that will couple with the injection that we do and the interior drain system with wall shield that we do. So that's another way that we can kind of stop that before we go outside. But if we do go outside, that means that this problem has existed for quite some time probably, and has not been addressed. So number one, you're going to have multiple cracks on the inside like we talked about. Number two, you're going to have that wall moving in pretty significantly, 2, 3, 4 inches minimum probably. A lot of times what you'll see is, the steel I-beam that supports the home that the floor joists sit on will pop out the side. You guys ever seen that, right? And that'll indicate that you have that wall moving in to such an extent that we do have to dig it out. The full exterior dig out is kind of what it sounds like. We have to actually dig that entire wall out down to the footing, which is 8-10 feet down. We have about a 2.5 foot wide trench, and then at that point we're addressing everything from the outside. So we're waterproofing it with a rubber membrane on the outside of the house. We have come inside after we've excavated, and we've pushed that wall back out to where it needs to be. So now the house is sitting on it flush again, and it's holding all that weight again. And then we're going to backfill that whole trench outside with gravel. So we're going to mitigate that pressure that the wall's been feeling the whole time. New drain tile on the outside, running into a sump pump system. Quite a bit more significant. Something you want to avoid if you can.
Oh, absolutely, because it's so labor intensive. And so from the interior, we're doing a 12-inch dig and breaking out concrete that we can easily simply get to. And then from the exterior, you're talking about a typical exterior basement wall is an 8 to 9 foot wall. And so you either have to manually or use machinery to dig that deep. And then while it's open, you have to obviously mend the issue that's causing the water to intrude in the first place. And so the cost difference is significant.
It's about 3.5 times.
3.5 times. And so we go from a simple crack of few $100 to an interior drain that is usually, less than $100 a foot, somewhere in there. and then you go to the exterior, which is 3.5 times that.
Yeah.
A huge progression from just simply allowing water to pressurize that wall. Mm-hmm. And so our encouragement, what we have with homeowners is they don't cure themselves. That's the problem with water. It just doesn't go away. Every time that rains and it pressurizes that wall, if there's a path of least resistance, it's going to enter the home.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you think foundation work and you just immediately think, wow, that's a lot of money.
Right.
If you just have us out there, let's take a look. We can actually save you a lot of money by jumping on that before we hit all these different progressions we just went through.
If you think about a few $100s to literally hundreds of dollars a foot to an exterior remediation, it's amazing how different that is. We have jobs that literally are $300, $400, $500, and then it can escalate up to $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 depending on the extent.
Yeah.
But it all started the same way.
Correct.
For the most part, when it comes to water.
Yeah.
Specifically when it comes to water does progress, and water is consistent pressure that shows up seasonally. Every single year, and so you ultimately need to deal with the water, and so for those that in their mind think, hey, it's probably too expensive. What you're saying is just have us out. Guess what? The consultation for Eric or Brian or any of our structural consultants to show up is literally zero.
Free.
It's free, right? Yeah. And so have them out to get the opinion and education as knowledge. You'll know what you're up against versus building it up into your mind as something that's just bigger than life. It's not that way. These things are manageable. Foundation problems are solvable, but in most people it's a black box. And so they just think the worst. Worst case scenario, are you a half full or a half empty person? When it comes to foundations, most people are, it's the half empty thing. They think worst case scenarios. So from a financial perspective, just to kind of educate homeowners, what are some of the alternatives, either possibilities of phasing solutions if they're really large issues to handle with budgets? We get a lot of tax breaks and times of years where potentially there's preferable pricing. I'm throwing those out there.
Sure.
Or from a financing perspective, what are some options that either we have or others that are out there?
Yeah. With regards to the phasing, that's a great point. At KC Pier, one of the main things we do for our homeowners is give you options. So at the end of the day, whenever I walk out of a house, typically you're going to have an A, a B, a C. What we're doing there is we're giving you the opportunity to jump on these things before they get worse, right? If you want to just go with a crack injection, at the end of the day, it's your home. That's your decision. We want you to also know that you can do this, you can do that, So at the end of the day, we're going to give you those options, and all of those options can be done in phases. So we can always come back and do that. So that's number one way that you can financially plan for a foundation repair.
Yep.
Number two is financing. We use a lot of Green Sky financing. The reason we like them is, number one, they have same as cash loans. So essentially free money, right? 12-month, 18-month, etc. You jump on that gives you the opportunity to spread out your payments across that time period with zero interest. Literally free money, right? What's better than that? Green Sky has many different plans from that way up to 10-year plans at a certain percentage. So Green Sky has many different options. That's why we like to use them. They're very easy to apply for, and they give you a quick decision, and we can be on our way with that project.
I really like, and I want to stress upon the first thing you said, because as president of KC Pier, I specifically look for differentiators. Right, what sets us apart, and we service, we educate, and we reach out to the public through Realtor and little symposiums and educational seminars, things like that. Those are things that we're passionate about and that we do. But the one thing that I really like that we do well is that we sit and give them the ABC option. This is great for realtors as well, because realtors are always trying to get to the closing table, and you have sellers that are selling a property who don't necessarily want to spend the tens of thousands of dollars in a full solution, but they want to also provide a very comfortable solution to the buyers. And so by having an A, B, and C, you essentially get 3 options, potentially, maybe more, maybe less. It just depends on the situation, but you get multiple options. And one is this will get this will get it done, right? Crack injections and beams are real common in those that A type of solution. But at the same time, if a wall is leaning in and you're re-supporting it with beams, at the same time, you could also dig that out from the exterior and push that wall back like you talked about. That would be that C option, Cadillac lifetime warranty, right? And if you want to provide that, whether it's a real estate transaction or just home ownership, you'll have that option. And then that B is kind of that hybrid, that mix of two. So you have that option right away to spend different levels and commit to what most likely is your largest cash investment of your lifetime, a house. Or you have the option to say, okay, well, my goal is C, but maybe can we do A or B in the spring, and come fall, we'll attack the rest to reach us to that C spot. You have the options. And the best part about that is your plans live in our database. And so it's there for a lifetime. The warranties that are provided, for that service up front live with KC Pier, and they follow the address of the house, not the homeowner. They transfer for free, so they just sit there. And so having those options, I think, is a really great differentiator, because we there's tons of choices of foundation resolution companies in Kansas City. It's a very competitive marketplace, and we have fortunately great reviews, and we reach out and do things that we think are very customer friendly. But to have those options versus what many competitors do is just say, hey man, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at you, right? And we're not going into names, but you'll see them, because you'll see KC Pier's options. You'll see those finances that are committed to that, and then you're like, well, why didn't they give me options? Well, that's just their business model. There's people have different approaches, and we tend to feel like we can live with houses for a lifetime, and we can work towards solutions and work through, whatever the variables of home ownership is, whether you're transferring it to somebody else, whether you're living there a lifetime, whether you're in temporarily for the next 5 years on a corporate lease, or whatever it may be. We give those options specifically to apply the different variables that everybody kind of has as they enter a house, right?
And John has seen this recently. We've had 2 or 3 different situations recently that you've been out on, where we have had a work that we've done for the homeowner. And I think it was last year we did some work for these people, and then now they contacted us back and they said, "Hey, Eric, I'm ready to go with phase 2." And so we've seen that recently.
Right, we recently had a job in Belton, Missouri, where it was a return customer, and it was significant work that was done beforehand on the return trip, which doesn't have to be the case if you jump on it, but for this person it ended up being that way for one way or another. I don't know how they came into the house or anything like that.
Yeah, you bet. But they made a commitment that they were going to live there a lifetime, and so they it's the greatest compliment I think we can have as president of KC Pier, is calling us back out. You're obviously very satisfied with the work that we did up front. So that's fantastic. I love hearing those stories, and it happens because of many different variables. Some is financing, our finances, and others are just simply because of choice. So that's all the water side. Right. We didn't really get into the big picture items, which is the structural, houses moving up and down and settling, which is really this time of year. It's our dry season. We're seeing a lot of settling right now. So are there minor issues we see with settling that you can resolve, and how does that progress over time to really severe issues?
Yeah, so this is definitely a big one, and I have been seeing a lot of this in the houses recently. When it comes to settlement, what you have is you have an area of your home where the footings have cracked, and that is allowing the home to then tilt, okay? It's poured, if you have poured concrete, it's poured, it's strong. Once it cracks, it's kind of free willy, right? It can just, do whatever it wants, okay? So with settlement, sometimes we walk in, and of course, John and I have been through this on a few different podcasts as well. We take elevations, we read the home, we figure out what's going on. If you're in the range of, say, 3/4 of an inch up to an inch, you probably have, minor cracks in your sheetrock, doors and windows probably not working a little bit, normal stuff. Of course, that is when you want to attack it. Again, just like the crack where we inject it, you want to attack it when it's not that bad. Because number one, you're going to save yourself a lot of repairs when it comes to your house, just sheetrock, tile, cabinetry, whatever. If we go in and we pier that and we stop it from moving. Here's the dangers if we don't catch it in time. If you get to where you're 3, 4, 5 inches low in an area, you're now going to have significant cracking in your foundation, in your sheetrock. Lots of things are going to be broke, windows can crack, etc. And then when we go and try to, we can either lift or support a home. So when we go in with the Dynapier, and a lot of people want us to lift because you're talking 4 or 5 inches, you drop a marble, it's going to roll, right? You're going to want that back. When we try to lift that back up, a lot of times it is not feasible to lift that much because we're going to break a whole lot more.
Right.
So essentially, catch it fast. Again, it's going to cost you a lot less. Do it later. We might not be able to lift it all the way back up at all, and you're going to have significant more damage inside your house.
And we were talking about earlier how foundation repair, the damages that you see on the foundation are just the foundation side of it. We also see the damages of your finished areas of your home. So if you're waiting significant periods of time with settling, going back and trying to do the repairs on your home, you were talking about cabinetry, flooring, walls, doors, windows, it's even more significant at that point.
It amplifies
is it salvageable then?
Right. And plumbing. If your house is falling that far, you're bound to have plumbing leaks, pipes breaking. You could have flooding. There's a lot of things that can happen.
So really, the bill just gets exponential the longer you wait, and who knows what that exponent actually is? But
exactly.
It's significant. It's significant enough to worry about.
It amplifies, and if anyone's curious, they can go on to our blog site and look up the job that John recently recorded out there in Olathe. If you want to see an extreme case of maintenance deferral, just letting it go over years and watching a house really settle. I mean, we're talking about a job that's 50,000 plus in terms of repair that easily could have been stabilized early in the game.
Yeah.
And would have been, 10th of that potentially.
I think we maybe did every repair that we have in our book on that house.
It's a big one. There's some great footage of look up the Olathe house on the blog channel and it's our YouTube channel and you would see it. Yeah, it really can amplify. So not only are the resolutions expensive, but as John you indicate, the fixes on the interior of the home, which I did want to build off of for those that are thinking about a remodel. Right, and we see this in the investment world as well as home ownership world. You want to fix the foundation first.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't fix the foundation first and you go back and you patch cracks and then all of a sudden you want to lift that house, I mean, those cracks are going to just open right back up. They're not going to go away and they're not going to solve themselves. And if you ignore the foundation and fix the cracks, many homeowners can probably relate to this. They just show up again.
It's gonna come right back.
Yeah, the seasonal changes will just bring it right back. And so you build a house from the foundation up, and you fix and rehab a house from the foundation up as well. So for those that are considering a remodel or a rehab, or for your realtors and you're talking to your buyers and sellers about going through a house, it really needs to be foundation first. And what I like about what you said is you have options in terms of stabilizing and lifting. Sometimes you have options, and those can be discussed. There's no real additional cost to those, but knowing that strategy up front going into your project is really critical, because it can save you a lot of costs in the long run for through the remodel or rehab, if that's the direction you're going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So costs kind of pertaining to those, you're just saying essentially by catching them early, you're settling is expensive. I mean, it really is. Your average tickets are typically in the thousands. And so capturing that early can keep that in the lower end of that, because by letting it go, it can only amplify.
That's correct. And we talked about it amplifying your other things in your house, right? It can also amplify your foundation as well, because if you have a portion that's hanging off, it's acting like an anchor, right? So
pulling it with
odds are it's going to pull portions of the house with it, so your piering bill is going to get higher too.
If you have a corner of your house that's fallen, and you're like, it's just the corner of the house. Just let it go and see if that corner of the house is still going to be the corner of the house. That corner of the house is going to pull the rest of it with it. Just like you said, it's an anchor, and so it continues to pull. And so a 3-pier issue over the course of delaying 2 or 3 summers can become a 9-pier issue, and a 9-pier issue is amplified by 3 times the cost.
Yeah,
right?
That's correct.
And if it gets to a 12-pier issue, I mean, we've had houses that are 30 in the 30s, 40 piers when it's a full tilt house. And it could have been resolved earlier if they would have just stabilized and supported that house early in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, whether for fear or ignorance, you've found yourself in this situation where you have a significant foundation repair that you need to go with. And so we've already talked about green sky financing. Are there any other types of financing that maybe are non-conventional specifically for foundation work?
A lot of times, I tell people to check into their own lender that they have their house with, right? You can get a home equity, loan, and maybe Eric can speak on this more than me. But yeah, there are several different options when it comes to financing, and if you need our help on that end, we're there for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it's there, and of course, KC Property Guys is there too. The Olathe house we ended up purchasing because once they heard the number, they were thinking about moving anyway, and so once they heard the number that was tied to their foundation resolution, they just simply chose to work with KC Property Guys, and we're the ones that bear the burden of the cost, and but somebody has to bear those burdens when those the point is when you ignore it gets significant. But there can be options. There's in-house options, and we hear this, and we never recommend it. Somebody entertaining their 401k to resolve an issue, I'd never recommend that. I'd always look into something like Green Sky, a consumer financing company that has especially 12 months, same as cash, and they run deals throughout the year that can be extremely affordable for homeowners, and so it's always good to ask and tell someone like Eric or Brian, our structural consultants up front, and says, hey, if you have information on financing, definitely let them know so they can bring that information to the table. And it's very quick, it's painless, and it's just an option. It doesn't cost you anything. So having an idea and a strategy and a plan, and again, talking through a consultation is much more important than just saying, oh, I assume this is the issue, and just keeping that black box and thinking half emptily. So you'll want to definitely approach the issue and just have someone come out, and take a look and bring those options to the table so we can help, find the best solution for them.
Talking about finances can be scary, can be awkward, especially with someone that you are having look at issues in your home and you're looking to spend money with them. You don't really want to show your hand, but in this case, showing your hand can save you all of your cards.
Yeah, it really can.
It's true. Save you all your cards.
It's no fun. Like we talk about this a lot. It's no fun. It's not fun work. It's the same. It's almost like the same thing as a roof. No one really cares about a roof, but when you need it, it's expensive and it has to happen. This one's kind of worse. It's almost like saying, hey, I want to go to the car lot. I want to pick that Cadillac over there, and I want you buried under my house. I mean, that's essentially what you're doing sometimes with some severe issues. It's like, I love it, love the looks, but I don't get to drive it. I don't get to touch it, but it has to be done. That's right. And so by capturing it early and talking about things up front and working those options, the ABC options, knowledge is power. We talk about that a lot. Get an education and get your options up front. That'll help you strategize to you and the variables that you're applying to your house. Yeah. How long are you living there? What's the future? What's the next 5 years look like? 10 years look like? We're really good about having those conversations and working solutions that fit into your life variables. So by keeping quiet and hoping that there's something there, right? And make some assumptions. Generally speaking, it tends not to work in your favor. Being open and transparent, it really helps us because we're doing the same thing. And I encourage it with all these guys. Lay it out there for them. Show them their options. Educate them as to what to expect. Yeah. When the production guys are in the house, show them what you're doing step by step. We put it on the table anyway. Go to our videos, right?
Yeah, speaking of education,
see what we do on a day-to-day basis, and that's specific. I highly encourage that from all levels. From the marketing to the production to sales, we try to educate, and that's there for a reason, right? And so if you're doing that as a consumer, right? If we're laying it out there, we can help you strategize the best solution that fits you and your needs and your variables.
I can't tell you how many times too, speaking of education, we go out and someone has made the really good decision to have us come out because they think something might be going on. Your foundation's fine. Sometimes that happens.
Good point.
I will still go through everything. I'll still check your entire foundation. No. And what we will do at that point is talk about preventative measures you can take, burying your downspouts, keeping positive drainage around your house. No matter what it is, even if there's no work for us at all, I will still try and educate you to prevent you from seeing me again.
Right. No, and it's we got that in the reviews, and they're like, really? Yeah, that's true. You don't necessarily, some cracks are not all bad cracks. We talk about that a lot as well, and some issues really aren't foundation issues, and we don't mind telling people because it's all about education and helping people out.
So while we're talking about education, great place to look for education on this topic and a lot of other topics relating to this is on our website, kcpier.com.
You bet.
Looking us up on YouTube, searching us on Google. There's a lot of information there, and a great place to get an education is in a consultation. If you think there's something wrong and you'd want to know more, just give a call, fill out the form on the website. You're gonna get a great education that way. Mm-hmm. So I think that's all that I have for the both of you this time.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel or check out our blog. Until next time, we'll see you.
All right, take care.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Show. Please support all things local to Kansas City. And hey, be sure to subscribe and share our podcast on Facebook and LinkedIn. This has been a KC Property Guys production. KCPropertyGuys.com.